Not long enough.
But you've had great people sharing.
Yeah. Dan's been pretty good during the season. Dining room.
Bro.
It's cool. You want to try that next time?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But then...
Man, I like the new Marshall, whatever I want. Let's go. Are you sure? Are you sure about that?
Not sure.
Cool. Today we're going to talk about Timothy. It's one of the banquets that we run.
First Timothy?
First Timothy, yeah. And I particularly think it's a good approach for the things that we do when it comes to church planning and training new pastors and that level of instruction. You mentioned a few things behind the cameras that we can cover.
Yep.
But for the main audience that is watching this is probably one of the crucial teachings per se.
Yeah. So it ties up with a theological thought, but it also ties up with a leadership thought.
Yes.
And really, you can put it in your application to life on purpose as well.
Yeah.
So First Timothy goes across all those things, not just that little book, but the people themselves, Paul, the Apostle Paul and Timothy.
Yeah.
Great example of service, followership, sacrifice, the call of God, the testing, the trial, the wilderness, all those elements in this small little 6-chapter book, this one letter that Paul writes to Timothy in a context of Ephesus, and still applicable big time today for leadership and for up and coming leaders as well. So I really like the gem.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you chose that because I think it really reflects, or it's pretty close to what we have here. Obviously, size-wise, that'll be different. But Ephesus being, let's just say, one of Paul's favorite churches. The elders are there on the beach when he goes. Oh, I'm going to Jerusalem. I'm not sure what's going to happen to me. And they're all crying. They don't want Paul to go. And I mean, I'm not prophesying anything, but in the future, once things need to take on a different pace, and we have to say, okay, where's Marshall going now, and what's happening here at Ephesus? I like that. I like that you chose that to teach from that perspective. Yeah,
and also it's got clear structure. What to implement in order to keep the church in a godly state. So. The whole premise of First Timothy, the goal of First Timothy is actually right in the center of First Timothy 3, 14 to 16. That's the essence of the message.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go...
The characteristics of an overseer.
Yeah, it doesn't go from chapter 1 through to chapter 6. It actually goes the two extremes, 1 and 6, join in into the center of the message that Paul has, which is godliness is the core. I
don't know if you like to use those sort of terminology. I think it might be too technical for whoever's watching, but we in Hebrew we call it chiastic scriptures. 1, 2, 3, 6, 5, 4, and meets at 3, and messages right there in the middle.
That's a good picture. Thank you for that.
It. Come on.
Yeah.
So why don't we do this?
Right.
Let's run through what you teach at your banquets. Maybe this will be a preview.
This is a 7-week banquet.
Yeah.
2 hours a night. So
we're talking about a 15 to 20 hours content.
Yeah.
It's shrunk down.
Yeah, but it's a 15 hours content of interaction. Discussion. Like, the whole point of the banquet is to create the curiosity that people have for the word and digging deeper.
Yeah.
Into context and then application of context and then principalize the bridge to nowadays.
Yeah.
So it's just a perfect book, even when it comes to, if you're looking for a faith community, to looking, okay, what's the structure here? What's who are the people in evidence? It's really important, and it gives you a good reference point for a healthy community, for a healthy Christian community.
Yeah.
So, so I love the book of First Timothy particularly. I like Ephesus in the sense of The city, it's quite different to Corinth. Corinth is basically success and debauchery.
Corinth is the church you don't want to go to.
You don't want to be Corinthianized. But then Ephesus has an element of wealth and success, religious, political, quite mystical, that aspect as well, and a thriving city. So I do like
very much like
Ephesus.
Gold Coast.
Yeah, very much.
Very much.
Although Gold Coast is quite Corinthianized as well.
Yeah, some parts.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the, how people claim to be religious, have this mindset of well-educated people, wealth, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it's a great, and look, Ephesus is a well-documented city.
Yeah.
The Book of Ephesians. You got Timothy who's there. You got Revelation chapter 2.
The only church that doesn't have any complaint against. Come on.
I know. But
you want to be in their church, but
the fallen from their first love. I think that's the key thing. And so I think that's a trap. And basically you look at the structure of 1 Timothy and chapter 1, this is a real brief summary. Yeah. Chapter 1's really hammering.
Just to be clear, we're not going to cover the whole thing. No, it's impossible.
This is just a lightweight preface that's really good for everyone to explore deeper. But if you read it from, you start with chapter 1 and then chapter 6. You're looking at the two extremes of issues. You've got the legalism in chapter 1, and I say legalism, but it's the debates, the false doctrine, the disputes, the arguments, the logos machia, the fighting, word battles to be right. These things, the internal focus, a lot of knowledge base. So you're really pushing this thing. And the other side of chapter 6 is the wealth, the materialism, the flaunting, the pride, the greed for money, the lust for money, the desire for more, the get rich picture. And that's not just a message to the rich, it's to the poor, because a lot of poor people desire to get rich.
Yeah. Everyone wants more.
Everyone wants more. So then you've got, the trap of that, the snare, the falling, the temptation. So there's the two extremes, and I think they apply today. I think churches, we can become very structured on our behavior management, the legalism, the disputing about basically judgments on others' behaviors, but also on doctrine. So, and Paul's trying to push the bigger picture of the gospel, and doctrine's important. Doctrine's how do you intellectualize our faith in application, in terms that we can understand. So doctrine's important, but it's always got to feed into the fullness of the gospel. Yes. And that's not a distraction, and you shouldn't be spending debates on righteousness based on doctrine. Yeah. It all feeds into the...
It's funny how you say this. This morning I was driving and one of my cousins sent me a message and he said, can you send me some sources of information that I can look it up? I'm just looking it up here because this is going to be interesting. About the time of the return of Jesus and millennial and all of that. And I was like, no, I can't send you that because it's just vain discussions and you're going to get into a rabbit hole and it's not going to get you
endless
anywhere.
Genealogies.
Yeah, endless genealogies and all of that. And I was going to do this towards the end, but
while we're here.
I thought maybe part 2, but when you mentioned, the goal is not doctrine, there was, I made a note in one of my Timothy things. I can't write anything down, but it's full of highlights and I'm probably going to get lost here. But the note that I made is like, doctrine is important, but the goal is, Paul is saying, look, you are there at Ephesus to stop these people from preaching the wrong thing. So your goal is not to indoctrinate everyone, but to make sure that the wrong doctrine doesn't come in. Yeah. So you're there to protect
Yeah.
rather than just preach most of the times.
Because I think Paul says the reason why people go down this rabbit warren is because of they're not embracing the full message of Christ.
Yeah.
And they're getting distracted by these disputes over words.
Yeah.
Word debates, endless genealogies, probably bought in with, Gnostic mindsets, just sort of snatching at things to, again, it's all about promoting
Endless
self.
pursuit of answers and
Endless.
Yeah.
It's just, and that just creates the church becoming internal.
Yeah.
It just moves away from the glorious gospel for all people, that all who believe will be saved through the righteousness
Yeah.
of Christ, not
That's
by
it.
our actions.
one mediator.
Yep, but as soon as you start debating doctrine and disputing things,
Yeah.
you start turning inwards. And as soon as you turn inwards, your world gets smaller.
Yeah.
But it's not denying the importance of doctrine, because Paul's like, no, you got to keep those.
Yeah. It's
those
basing
things
on the right
important.
thing.
It's and doctrine's the guide. Doctrine's there to give you, oh, that's what that means.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how I apply this. Oh, that's what that's guiding me in.
Yeah.
Into the fullness of the gospel, which is
The word doctrine actually means what you do.
what to do.
So that's a
Yeah.
guide. Yeah.
What do I do in this small application of the gospel?
Yeah.
Adoption, sanctification, purification, those aspects. How does sanctification break down into
Yeah.
areas of my life? That's a doctrine issue.
So if you're not taught right, if you don't believe right, you will behave wrong.
Correct.
Like you believe wrong, you behave wrong, and you have this expectation that you're doing the right thing. We could cite so many things. Holy wars and all of that. People that believe that they're doing the right thing for the sake
Yes.
of God, but at the end of the day, they have the wrong. We said this with our interns. The wrong orthodoxy will lead you to the wrong orthopraxy.
Yeah.
It's you just got to make sure you.
Then it becomes heterodox.
Well, now you're going too deep for me, bro. Too deep. Yeah, it's different. Hetero means different.
Yeah.
That's why we're heterosexual.
Yeah.
But that's a different debate. It's a different, male and female God created.
Amen.
them. So the different discussion.
And that's sort of why Paul, he was certain he was on the right path.
Yeah.
He was dogmatic.
Yeah.
He was like, no, the law is the right way.
Yeah.
And you're going somewhere, I'm going to chop you.
Yeah.
Until he had an encounter with the risen Lord.
And he actually put himself in the line. To
Yeah.
the Galatians, for example. If anyone comes here and teaches you anything other than this, you curse them.
Yeah. And he even says that at the end of chapter 1, Hymenaeus and Alexander.
Yes.
You
That
know.
was my next thing. No,
Yeah.
I love that because he said, look, these guys have done it wrong. I've delivered them to Satan,
Yep.
which means they can go do their own thing, and if they repent, that's fine. But leave them there.
Yep.
And that's what I meant about the job the task that was given to Timothy is protect the flock from these kind of people.
Because these people know, but they've strayed. So, and Paul's referring to cutting them away from the fellowship because
Yeah.
of Numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers 15, when Paul's like, if someone intentionally does something wrong,
Yeah.
you need to cut them away.
Yeah.
If there's no repentance, no
And
remorse.
back to the chiasm, chapter 3, the center of the letter.
Yep.
Paul being a Jewish, Hebrew, not Hebrew, but being Jewish in his upbringing,
Yep.
he would write it that way. And then when it gets said, look, if you want to teach, you desire a great thing, but
Yep.
you have to fulfill all these requirements first.
Yep.
And if you know that these people haven't, then they're not supposed to be doing it. Cut them off.
Yep. So
I remember a while ago, you actually put that to practice. I don't know if the Timothy Banquet was already running. That was years ago. And we had a situation in our church where people living in a sinful lifestyle, they weren't even teaching, but they were in evidence. And then you said, look, there's room for everyone. You welcome everyone, and the Holy Spirit is going to change them at God's pace. But you can't give them authority, because if you give them authority, they're leading people astray. So your main job, you told me, your main job is to protect the flock first, and then you go on the individual, which is really, it's a high tension because you don't want to hurt anyone at the same time.
No.
Unnecessarily, obviously.
And that's where mercy is important. And Paul mentions that God was merciful to me because I was operating in ignorance. That's the mercy of God is great because he was ignorantly blaspheming.
Yeah.
Going against God. So when people are in a community intentionally, they do have to be confronted in that regard. But it can't be behavior modification management. It can't be behavior management. If you go down behavior management, no belief has changed.
Mm-hmm.
So they're behaving for compliance and acceptance, validation, but their heart is still not in it. So they're obeying the law, but there's a misalignment in the heart of true godliness.
Yeah. And it's, again, man, this letter is so good. Paul says, look, we know that the law is good if it's used lawfully.
Yeah, to highlight sin.
Yeah.
The law is not for the righteous.
Yeah.
It's for the unrighteous.
For the wrongdoers, yes.
For all the list. And that's what it should do. It should bring a cutting on our heart, a desire to cut away the flesh on our heart so that our heart is pure with righteousness of Christ, not just the knowledge of the head. And that's why he's saying, stop this dispute stuff.
Yeah.
And he reiterates it at the end of chapter 6 as well. Just these arguments, guys, that they've got to stop. So then you go to the other extreme of chapter 6 with the wealth, the pursuit of wealth, the desire for money, the flaunting, the idea of success. And when he talks about rich, we often think in Australia we are rich, and we are. I would be in the world setting rich.
Top 5% for sure.
But he's not hitting that class. He's hitting the elite level.
Yeah.
So the really wealthy, the people who have someone looking after their personal finances, like that level.
Yeah.
So I'm so wealthy.
You're so rich you can't count your own money.
Afford someone to manage my
I pay people to count my money.
my personal wealth.
Yeah.
And then I have servants, and I can afford lawyers to fight for me, whatever.
To sue you, poor people who don't have enough money to pay people to count your money.
So he's really challenging that level. And in Ephesus, you have that because of the nature of the city.
Yeah,
high trade, affluence. You've got Artemis there, the Diana.
Yeah.
The god of prosperity, of nurture, of nature and goodness. So promoting wealth, a big, huge structure. The size of a stadium with 100 pillars. Huge, iconic structure.
Yeah.
And so you've got, that's the bank basically. People are keeping their money there. Affluent people, high status, proud. And that's just not the way of Christ. Parading around.
Yeah.
It doesn't highlight righteousness or success. Yeah. Oh, the blessing of God. Is it a blessing or is it a curse?
Or a blessing in disguise.
Well, the more you have, in chapter 6, he gives the seven keys of actually, if you're really wealthy, you need to give, willing to share, all those things. So
tell them to be rich in good deeds.
So, and he's probably referring to like Tabitha's in Acts, successful seamstress, who's rich in good works, blessing a lot of people. So, he's instructing Timothy, you've got stop these guys from debating this stuff, and stop these guys being so enamored by wealth, but also the distraction that is for the poor people who desire to be wealthy, the get rich quick schemes. That's got to stop. And to be honest, you've got to stop that in your church.
Yeah.
Numerous times.
Oh,
I've had to stop that in my church.
How many times have we seen people say, oh, we just got to get the pastor into this thing, because then everyone gets into that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Many years ago, probably 5 years into pastoring, I was offered by a multi-level marketing person,
it always
assistance, and straight away, Rochelle and I just said no.
Yeah.
I said no. I said, I don't want to sit in front of someone I'm serving and say, are they a client of mine, or am I serving them?
Yeah.
I don't ever want that conflict. So I've just never.
Yeah.
And there are multiple. They always come in. Whatever it is, multi-level marketing or business.
I think in nowadays, everyone has had some sort of experience, either personally or with someone close to them who's worked for some of these companies, and everyone has some level of frustration. So I remember when I went into Brazil, I said, look, one thing I will never, we made a list on the cover of our Bible, Nalini and I, things that we will never do. We'll never sell DVDs in church. Because we buy the DVDs with the money they give, so there's no point. We'll never do this, we'll never do that. Like we made a list of like 10 funny things that we would never do. One of them was we would never get into sales or network marketing while we're doing anything in church. Why? Because it's an easy target.
Yeah.
You have a road of it, it's just wrong. It's just wrong.
So don't get distracted by that, pastors. Get rich quick schemes, and they float through, and you have to, just make it clear that's not acceptable in our community.
If you signed up for being a pastor, it's very likely you'll be broke for the rest of your life anyway. So just just go with it.
Well, I think again, 1 Timothy covers that. Even in chapter 1, many are doing this for financial gain, but godliness with contentment is great gain. So, Timothy would have, and it actually covers it in chapter 4 about looking after. I imagine
what a great
leaders.
challenge it would have been for Timothy to articulate these words, because it's one thing, if you read it carefully, you see that Paul is reproducing a lot of the words that Jesus actually spoke, and Paul never heard personally, maybe on a revelation he had when he had, dream or whatever. But like when it comes internal, the discussions, before you come and look at the dust in my eyes or whatever, take the log out of yours. The one-liners that Jesus had became chapters when Paul wrote to Ephesus, Corinthians, and what have you. But I just think that Timothy, being a young guy, I imagine you have built this. Just put in this scenario. You've built this for 11 years, which is not long. It's a great journey, but it's not long. It's not 50. You've built this for 11 years, and then supposedly someone 22 years old come along, thinks he has the authority, and steps in front of people and said, look, Marshall told me to tell you to cut this. People will turn to me like, who are you?
Yeah. But they won't say, who are you, because they know.
Yeah, Paul encourages Timothy. He said, don't let people talk you down because of your age.
But he's been with Paul for numerous years. So he's,
I still would struggle.
Yeah, but I don't think he was that young. I don't think he was 22. I think he's closer to 30, even mid-30s.
Yeah. In that world, that's probably good enough. In our world, like I'm nearly 40. I still struggle to say some things. Even though I am like unashamedly rude sometimes, I still struggle to say some things, and I'm nearly 40. So,
some people will follow ignorantly. People are like sheep; they will follow a 25-year-old. I struggle with that, because I'm like, there's the testing. Where's the followership? And that's where Timothy is proven. That's why Paul has great confidence in Timothy, because he's served Paul. 11 years here on the Gold Coast, man, I served for 20 years in a church in New Zealand, in the same church, and Rochelle and I sowed our life into that. Yeah. So it's proven, So Paul actually touches on so many things. So you got the two extremes, and then he says, okay, to stop these, and I think they are the swings in church life. I think there's this, you're tempting to swing into legalism, to behavior management, to disputing because the knowledge of the community is increasing and their knowledge of God, so they want to talk more doctrine and get debatey, and it gets distracting. Come on, guys, the gospel's for all. Let's keep facing out. But then there's the other swing to the blessing of God, the materialism, the seemingly success, the nicer clothes, So there is this, I think there's this constant swing. So he wants Paul saying, how do you structure this to stop the swings being so big? Well, you bring it in. So chapter 2 is firstly pray. He puts prayer at the top.
For all people. All times.
And in verse 8 he says, men pray everywhere.
Everywhere. With their hands up, everywhere.
So straight away,
how far are we from that reality?
Prayer. So prayer has to be essential. That's going to stop the legalism, because straight away, as soon as you stop this and you go to that, all of a sudden you look down and I love you more.
You said a while ago that prayer is the only thing in the church culture that doesn't drag the credit to anyone.
No one.
So no one will say like, oh, it was my prayer who did that. Like if they say that, they probably haven't understood what prayer means.
But that's why people find prayer so difficult. Because they can't grab hold of it and say, look what I did.
Yeah.
They can't grab hold of it and make money from it. They can't grab hold of it and say to someone, this is how you have to pray.
Yeah.
Prayer is the greatest equalizer, because the rich man and the poor man. The greatest
equalizer. And that's not Denzel Washington, even though he's done 3 movies about it.
So Paul's like, prayer in chapter 2 straight away. That's going to keep us from getting lost in the disputes and the arguments and the genealogies and the doctrines. That's going to stop us entertaining the falsehood. Prayer aligns us to God. Prayer brings us under His will. It doesn't bring God into our will. It brings us under His will.
Amen.
And a lot of people say, God, come and join me. I'm praying. Yeah. No, we position ourselves under God through prayer.
Yeah.
So he's saying pray. And then he addresses a couple of things in the men, which is prayer and lift holy hands, meaning, he's quoting Psalm, clean hands, pure heart, holy hands.
So now we're getting into a point where, yes, it is for everyone. Yes, love and mercy surpasses judgment and doctrine, and but he's getting to chapter 3 where he's going to draw the qualifications of
leadership.
Overseers. So
then, but he talks about women. So, he puts in the creation order there. And in Ephesus, you've got a female temple, Artemis. To be a leader there, you have to be a female, strong female. So he's saying it's not like
prostitution, and you have all of that.
Not as much as Corinth. Corinth was more that, but to be a leader in the house of the Lord, we go back to Genesis. Men, lead, and women lead as well, and but it's different. So he's readjusting culture to creation.
Yeah.
And it's always a touchy chapter 3. Chapter 2, sorry. So you've got 2 issues for men, and there's like 7 issues for women.
Yeah.
But that's because they need more detail, right? They need more detail. When someone has a baby, I always say, yep, baby such and such was born, and they're all good.
Yeah.
But a woman,
how big, how heavy,
the weight, the length.
Yeah. How's the mum? What was the time?
How long was the labor? How long was the labor?
Yeah.
Are they all good? Yeah. They just want way more detail.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. So Paul's puts a lot more detail down. And, you know, this whole thing of can women teach in the church? I mean, that's been a debate for hundreds
2,000 years.
2,000 years. So, in the context of Ephesus, Paul is requiring the attitude of a disciple from both sexes. So there needs to be that discipleship.
I think
posture.
there's a huge mistake when people take biblical principles applied to the church and take it to the world. Like, oh, women can't be in leadership or anything. And again, it's been a great debate for the last couple of 100 years, maybe, with equality, gender equality, and equity, whatever it is, equity, salaries, and I saw a post the other day, and it really fascinated me because the guy really struck a vein. He said, look, no one has ever made any distinction. As a matter of fact, we're doing great in that area. What I would love to see is the women going into the mines. If you want equal salaries, you do the same work. And you can't, because you built different. And now people are seeing that backfire because, you know, transgender people, whatever they want to be called, they want to compete in different sexes, and it's just not fair. Like, they breaking records left and right because it's not fair. It's a different bone structure. It's a different organic structure. So same thing applies, I think. That's just my thinking. It's not theology. People are free to choose whatever they want to believe in, but I think that God has given some sort of some responsibilities to men and some responsibilities to women. And that is the natural. But the two shall become one. So there is this union that God planned and God sees. There's a great concept in the story of creation when God says, I shall create him a helper. That concept of helper is actually a positive opposition. I don't know if you heard that before. It's like it goes against you. And if you've been married for 6 weeks, you have experienced that already. She will complain about something. She will be against something, but it's in a positive way. It's not to bring you down. It's to bring the best of you out of you. You know.
Well, the word is Isa, which is the same role. Shema and the two roles are the same, but Isa. So that's not it's another person to complete you.
Yeah.
It's not a helpful assistant.
Yeah.
It's not a...
That's why Jerry Maguire is my favorite movie of all time. The elevator scene, the guy's sign language, and he tells the other lady in the elevator, you complete me. That's it. Boom.
Boom.
Jerry Maguire.
So, so there is... Paul addresses this really well.
Yeah. So that was chapter 2.
Because it's not... Yeah. It's not...
it's a lot to cover, right?
Not even gonna. I'm not even
go
gonna.
for it, bro. Go.
It's a beautiful union of togetherness because he reiterates it in chapter 3 with elders and deacons, husband and wives. So and again it's providing a reference point. Godliness is the center. You've got elders here, and these are the descriptions of what's required for eldership. You know, well behaved, not given to wine, open to hospitality, all these things. Good reputation with outsiders. So there's great criteria that you can actually put in place for your faith community to be strong and secure away from materialism and legalism. You need elders, and the women do teach, because he says they need to teach the younger women.
Yeah.
So there is this teaching element. It's the disciples of Christ. They're going to stand before the Lord themselves. So there is this equality. Absolutely. But there's different postures and different responsibilities. And that's great. So there's an example. So you've got this, how do you stop these issues in chapter 1? Well, you get everyone praying. You get the men to sort out their stuff. Yeah. You get the women to sort out their stuff. But wait, there's some elders and some leaders that are going to exemplify what godliness looks like. And these are aged people. They've been tested. They're not novices. They're not new in the faith. They're not trying this out.
Before we get to the elders in chapter 3, just in practical terms, bringing it back to chapter 2. At the end of chapter 2, there's something that no one has ever managed to explain, the whole childbearing thing. Women will be sanctified by childbearing and all of that. Without going into much detail, I always, at least when we ran the church that we ran in Brazil, that's how we did it. I always told people, look, if there is any problem happening at at home, and if I am brought to the picture, I will deal with the man. I will talk to the man, and I will press the man. It's not my job to press the woman. It's your job, both of you, to get together and figure it out because you are one. But I don't have any authority over your wife. Like, who am I to say anything there? But if you have placed yourself in this circle where we live together, do fellowship together, and you listen to this teaching, you will listen to me when I come to you and tell you this, because that's the care that doctrine requires. So I'll be strong with the man. And I used to say it in a joking way, but it's kind of true. Everything that happens wrong is your fault, man. It's your fault. And you deal with your wife later on. But then women steps into the picture, and they will have those conversations. And it brings up, Proverbs 31, the wise woman will build up their house. So they come from a different approach, maybe more patiently, more, and they will fix things that need to be fixed, fix perspectives. So they will deal with that. So I always say, we are to blame, and they are to get the credit. If the house is ran well, great, well done, moms. You raised your children well. Very rarely people will tell dads, hey, well done, dad, you raised your children well. No, because the mom is doing all of that. And that's when I go back to the whole childbearing thing. Obviously that's not a theological statement, but I go, look, in most cases, in most civilized societies, the woman will have a greater responsibility with the children. They will be more present. And they will.
Well, I think Mother's Day and Father's Day highlight that.
Yeah.
Mother's Day is way more precious and honored than Father's Day.
Yeah.
So Father's Day is painful for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Mother's Day, not so, because most people love their mum.
You won't find very abusive mums as much as abusive
not as much,
fathers.
No. No, so, I think too, childbearing generated a lot of fear back then. You had a lot of death in childbearing.
Death, yeah.
You've got a lot of fear around raising children in the culture of Ephesus, the mysticism, the magical culture that it was, and so there's fear around that. And Paul's not saying you'll be saved as far as your ticket to heaven.
Yeah, salvation.
Salvation, sorry, that's the word. Salvation because of childbearing, but your life will be spared in the sense of you've got to have faith in God that you will get through this because God's hands on your life.
And if we're talking about chiasms like we are, go back to the beginning, Genesis, there's two creatures, two missions, mythological or not, whatever you want to interpret that. There's male and female. Male, you work, you bear a child.
Yeah,
that's it. So that's your sanctification thing.
It's not equal because men can't give birth. 100% of the population came through the womb of a woman.
Yeah, and
that's
even
not
if they
fair.
make it
That's not fair
artificial,
for us.
it's not natural.
That's not fair for us. It's not. Where's the equity in that for us? 100%, of human life, as God intended, comes through a woman.
Yeah,
and
Jesus came through a woman.
There you go. So we, that's why the whole men love to provide. Men love. We're happy to work and toil to look after our princess and our children.
Come on.
And no one looks after children better than a mother because she birthed the thing.
We spoil kids.
She knows how to do it.
You leave a father with the kid for a week, that kid's spoiled. She'll be happy, but you won't be raised well.
Or spoiled or neglected.
Yeah, or neglected,
Wow.
That's true.
Or rejected.
Yeah.
There's so many things.
Wow.
But so Paul's reiterating, and look, the power of a woman He's sort of reiterating that throughout the books. What's the biggest downfall of any man? Is a woman.
Yeah.
So women have an amazing power and influence over men. And so that's why he's saying, don't flaunt it. Don't be distracting. Don't, make your hair distracting and your beauty distracting, because we hear about the Lord, and modesty.
Adorn yourself with godliness.
That's it.
Wow, that is so hard.
Yeah.
I got two daughters. One of them is turning into a teenager, and it's right at that stage where the clothes get short, and you're like, oh, no. And why not, Dad? Everyone wears that. You're not everyone. And then, man, it's hard.
It's hard. Yeah. And that's why you have the elders and deacons, overseers and deacons, bishops and, as that.
Presbyteros. Wow.
Presbyters. So you've got this godliness. This is exemplified by great people.
Yeah.
Great examples. You can look at their life and say, wow, they've been tested. Wow, they've got fruit on the vine. Yeah. Wow, they're nice, beautiful people. And that you need to establish this in new churches reasonably quickly.
You said in the beginning that this could be good for people who are looking for churches. So off we go. You're looking for a church and you look around, the people in evidence. I don't want to say people in leadership or hierarchy or whatever, but the people in evidence, because there will be people preaching, people teaching, people sharing. So the people in evidence, those are the first glance of that community.
Man, if there's no gray hair, if there's no elders, if there's then it's potentially you're just going to get into behavior modification.
Yeah.
And yes, the church might get people praying and men doing good things, women doing good things, but they need a reference point. Yeah. And Timothy's not the reference point for this. Timothy's wouldn't classify himself as an elder in that setting.
You place elders.
Yeah, but chapter 4 talks about Timothy's role. So that's another important factor, obviously, the leadership. But as a new church, you need to work on examples. You need to appoint and validate examples. This is where the person doesn't make the position. No, sorry.
The position doesn't make the person.
This is where the position doesn't make the person. Don't say to someone, I'd like you to become elders. Can you fit this description?
No.
You look for people who are this.
Yes.
And you validate them.
Validate it.
As elders and bishops in that regard, deacons in the church.
Yeah.
So, and you got to establish that pretty quick, because awesome. People need examples. And we're just blessed at Chapel with multiple.
Yeah. And that I think that comes out of Paul's Jewish background, and obviously ties in with Jesus, what Jesus wanted to establish as a church in the beginning, small community. But in the Jewish community, if you want to set up a synagogue, you need at least 10 experienced elders.
Yes.
So you don't start anything until you have the elders. And we all have seen the new kid on the block who, has a gift of communication, draws people to himself. And that's the bad thing, because all of the examples is we will draw people to Jesus. We'll point people to Jesus, but they draw attention to themselves. And we all seen that, over the course of 10 years, there's a big growth exponentially, and everyone's looking to the same person. It's a one-man job. And next thing you know, it falls like a house of cards.
Yeah. If there's no structure in place of godliness exemplified in the community of believers, proven marriage, proven fruit on the vine with kids, with reputations outside of church community.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It just provides that buffer. When people are sort of trying to get into arguments, the elders who have been living a life a lot longer than you just say, hey, stop there.
Yeah.
Stop there. Come on. Let's pray. Let's just pray.
Oh, love it. Love it.
And it just really, it's a beautiful picture. And that's something you need to prioritize as a church planner. God, bring in some stable, people that are proven. And God will do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we were very blessed from the start. We've got multiple pastors who have retired that are part of our faith community.
I love what you just said, and we might even have to edit this, I don't know, but Monday, we had our Bible college, and I think it's the third or fourth time that this happens. Someone comes to me and said, we want to serve more, we want to do more and all of that. And they are old, like 60, 70. And I'm like, great, what's stopping you? Let me help you. And I literally saw myself in that role of Timothy. Say, look, I'm not the elder. I don't have all the answers. And we have all these kids here, and I'm getting very annoyed now because I'm calling 20-year-old kids. And that means I'm getting old. So I'm like, we got these kids here. They're going through the same things that I went through, but I can't give them the answer yet because I'm not tested. I'm not ready. So I need the 60s and the 50s. And I'm like, why don't we put you guys together in a room? Let's just do that. Look, I'll bring the meat. I'll do some barbecue for you guys. I'll serve you guys. I'm appointing. Like I literally saw that. I'm appointing.
That's good.
So I said to this guy, and off the cameras we can talk about it. I said to this guy, I said, you choose, and I'm not pushing anything, but you choose 5 proven elders who are willing to teach. I'll give each one of you 20 minutes. We'll put a little event. Choose speak, break, choose speak, barbecue, choose speak, and we finish. And in between, we put the young kids to talk to you. They will come to you and say, okay, answer me this. And you form a relationship. And then from there on, you just go have coffee. So you have at least 5 or 6 young guys or young families to walk with. And he was like shining, you know? But I'm like, this is great. It's awesome. This is church.
Yeah, it needs to happen.
I saw Timothy right there, like the elders, the people looking for a church. And I'm like, okay, I had no answer. I had no tools, but I was just in between. I was the buffer. And I'm like, okay, let's do that. Let's. Yep. So I said to him, he said, we're going to have to ask Marshall and stuff. I said, no, you go find the people. I'll deal with the problem later. That was funny. And he's like, oh, okay.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. So there was
they're important,
like you said.
Yeah, they're important. And I think elders give men and women something to look at, to aspire to.
Yeah.
How does godliness look?
Yeah.
Well, like this. So, and then you've got chapter 5, which is the material, pushing back against the materialism, is the looking after widows and orphans and making sure that true widows,
true religion,
get looked after, and that's important, and bringing clarity to that.
Yeah.
He says they have to be over 60. So he actually puts an age on it. He puts they have to be on the payroll then. But if they have family, it's the obligation of the family. Yeah. So if your family is a believing family and they don't look after their mother or widower, mainly widow generally, then they're worse than an unbeliever.
Yeah. Infidel, I think, is the word of my translation. I'm like, wow.
So there is this heavy obligation on family first to look after your family. If they're younger than 60, get a job, get remarried.
Yeah, get married.
And look after your kids, your family. So, Paul's just bringing really good structure, really good clarity. He's not intending it to be a legalistic law and saying this is the criteria. No one can. There are always exceptions in that regard for care in a pastoral matter. So again, he's because people would want to not get married so they could get on the payroll.
Yeah,
and just bludge off the church. And he says they become busybodies, knowing everyone's business, going around house to house, gossiping and chatting.
Mm-hmm.
That's toxic. Gossip's toxic. People have to be busy for the Lord.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in utilizing your time.
Get busy.
Yeah. Idle hands are going to create trouble.
You got married. You just got married. Get busy. Multiply.
Yeah, multiply. And then it talks about Timothy's role.
Yeah.
So, as a leader, what his role is. So you've got these two extremes, I think, in the church today that are going good.
Yeah. Going back to chapter 5. It's interesting to me how the concepts resonate through other letters, and most theologians will believe that letters were not specific to one location, but they were rotating. except for one or the other. But he says the same thing to the Thessalonians, which we just explored as a church. If these people are not willing to work, they're not going to eat. So we think it's heavy, but I remember this quote. I can't remember who said it, but it's vivid in my mind, that your success is not as much relying on your habits, but on your systems. The systems you build around yourself. So you actually, like I said, especially for men, let's bring it to practice, especially for men, you have to create a system where you literally, quote unquote, enslave yourself to that system for you to be successful in what you're doing. So what time do you work out? What time do you go to work? What time do you do this? What time you spend with your family? And I would love for you to explore a little bit more about that, because you're a well, to me, you're a role model. We were talking the other day, Sam was teaching here, and it's like, I don't want to be a mini Marshall. And I just whispered in his ears, like, that's not a bad idea, bro. It's not a bad idea. But you're a role model. You're a strong voice. You've been proven. You've been doing this for a long time. I would love for you to go back on that part for a little bit before we finish with men. Men are designed to work. And this still a lot of people who don't understand that. I have been personally struggling with the idea of being present and being the provider. Like, it's something that I've been struggling with. One day I might even preach on this 10 years later, I don't know. But being present and being the provider, you have to abdicate one or the other. Being the man, if you choose to be present all the time, there won't be much to provide for, and vice versa. So how do you see that? The whole, I wouldn't even see the theology of that, but how do you see that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's phases and stages are important. When you're seeding a ministry, certain things take up a lot of time. I think it's intentionality is vital. Your ability to plan is important.
Planning, yeah.
It's the creep of ministry. It's the creep. It'll creep up on you. And before you know it, you're doing 70, 80, 90 hours a week.
Yeah.
And you've got people over here, and you're just trying to bless them with gifts or whatever to appease their need of you.
Under the excuse of doing ministry. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the episode with my daughters will be enlightening. And Rochelle. Yeah, because I think you can get distracted, and I got distracted. I was doing way too much, and probably didn't have the self-care.
Should we do one episode just with your view of, maybe you and Rochelle together, your view of distractions, like when you got distracted, when things got ugly, and then we get the girls.
Yeah,
on.
but I think everyone has to go through that to define their. It would be good if people did, but define what it comes back to defining what your success is. So, we can justify work to build a better ministry, so more people are blessed, so our provision's better, so that. It's just a career model. It's a ladder model, and it's not the way.
And it's not promised.
It's not promised. So, that's. I need some more time to think about that, because I don't.
I think
I'm more intentional with my son now than
you have ever been with the girls.
Like, at least twice a week, we get up at 5 a.m. and spend 3 hours together. We go to do a little workout, cook breakfast together, have devotions, prayer, and we talk about some specific thing in manhood. That's really intentional.
You see, I think that's an endless pursuit for me. I
agree.
I love learning, and I observe a lot. You've told me a few of the things that you've done.
Yeah.
I'm very careful with my calendar, but then every 8 weeks, I look at it and I was like, still not good enough.
Yeah, I'm the same. And I'm still the same. I'm still not great at it. So, I'm still not good at it. So I don't think I'm necessarily the right person to talk to. I don't know. I don't think I've got it.
I don't think there is someone who has mastered that.
I don't think I've done it great. I think I've learnt a lot. I love people, so that's always going to be a pull for me.
Yeah, my pull is not as much people, but the tasks, the things to do. Preparation, and I got to do this, got to do that, and I can always find an excuse to do something else at 11 o'clock at night.
I know. So your kids need you, your family needs you. Yeah, because we often give ourselves to everyone else, and we're so depleted we don't have anything for our family. But and it does come down to your calendar. It does. Yeah. So I have to schedule in dating my wife. Like taking her out for lunch or dinner, because otherwise we'll just meander through. Yeah. And I'm not going to say, Rochelle, if you want to catch up with me and go out for dinner, I'll leave it on you. Man, I'm the man.
Yeah. You're supposed to lead.
I lead.
It's your responsibility.
I love my wife. Yeah. And I want to show her that I love her. So we'll go out for dinner and lunch or away or whatever, as much as we can. At least we have to go out for dinner or lunch once a fortnight, like a good few hour break, and we just sit down and talk and share a meal and laugh or do something, go to the movies.
In this season, for me, it's been like, I'm very intentional with the kids. There's time for them. And there is a day every week for my wife, but it feels like that day is coming as an obligation in the calendar. And not obligations, dinner.
I say, we operate out of revelation, not obligation. But as soon as you have a revelation, as soon as you have a revelation, you're instantly obligated.
Yeah, you turn that into an obligation out of revelation.
Yeah,
yeah. So I think I did that.
So I do have an obligation to be a good husband and a faithful husband and invest into my wife, and only look at her. That's my that's my obligation, but it's from a revelation. Yeah. So,
it's
I understand.
It's a whole other game for them to understand that.
I don't want to go into that. Okay. I'm married to one wife, and I've had 3 daughters, and I've got 2 female dogs and 3 chickens.
Yeah. So maybe I should get them
I still know very little about a woman.
The day I find someone who says, I have understood and mastered women, man, I'll write a book about that. Yeah. I'll make billions, not millions, billions.
Yeah. Yeah. So, my daughters, they would be a good perspective. Yeah. I think I've done better than some. I think I've done well. I've made some dumb mistakes when it comes to the distraction of money and wealth, and tried to be self-sustaining and for the goodness, to ease the burden on the church. Yeah. But I haven't done well with that either. But we are blessed. We're looked after. I've always been diligent with what we've got. And that's always been input that I've sought in my life. I was at a meeting today seeking input on that sort of stuff for my family. So, it's tough, man. I'm still learning. Even today, I had, after my time with my son, I just spent an hour in my office just praying and thinking and reflecting on my own life. I had supervision. I have supervision once every couple of months.
What do you mean by supervision?
So someone in a professional counselling perspective that I can just offload, download things that are affecting me. I can't shift in my thinking or emotionally, so that's helpful. And so after that time on Monday, I've been reflecting on a few things, and so today I had just an hour just to write some thoughts down and pray about some things, look at my calendar. I need to adjust some things, so it's been really that's been helpful. So
I'm really happy that when you describe your routine, I kind of look back at my life. I was like, I think I got that right, because I copied a lot of stuff, and even the color coding and the times that I step into your office, then you're there fixing your computer on the second screen. I look at the calendar. Okay, red, blue, yellow. Okay, cool. So I kind of do the same. Yeah. I'm happy that is the path that it.
Good. I put everything in there, everything I'm doing,
Yeah.
because I want to look at my day and say, you know, man, I have spent some time with my family. So when I've got family time there,
It's family, nothing else.
shut the office door,
Yeah.
shut off the computer, shut off the phone. Okay, Zach, I'll smack you up at NBA. Let's go. NBA 2K, let's go.
Oh,
you know,
man.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm intentionally sitting down in the lounge with my family, my grandson, holding my grandson, you know, those things. So the structure of it's, you know, the 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 4 godliness. It's just fantastic.
I wish people had an easier way to learn how to read the Bible. It takes a long time until people understand that in Timothy, for example, 1 mirrors back 6, or 6 mirrors back 5 mirrors back 2.
Yeah.
Genesis, same thing. Like I've been through this journey, and again, Old Testament is not my lane, man. Like it's just like if I can, I put it away. But sometimes you got to go back into it, and it's part of what we do.
Yeah.
So I've been re-exploring Genesis and 1 to 11, which is the biggest troublemaker for everyone. So how it's 1 to 5-ish, 6, and 6 to 11. It's 2 things, chiasm, and then small chiasms, 1 to 3, 1 creation, 2 and 3 man at the end of creation, same thing, and then 4, 5, 6, same thing with Noah.
Yeah.
Noah mirrors back to creation, and then Babel. Like it's just so much.
Yeah.
And then I think, why don't we do like a Bible reading 101? As soon as people give their lives to Jesus, that'll make so much easier. But people don't want to read the Bible.
No, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what I mean is just the thickness.
People don't want to read it. People don't want to read it because they're in a culture that doesn't encourage that.
Yeah, our culture doesn't encourage it.
But
Yeah, exactly.
we can, because curiosity creates desire. So, you know, I think there is a need to show people a different culture, a different element of life that they've potentially missed. So why don't we do that?
One thing that I learned recently, and it changed my perspective with the calendar, and hopefully we can tie this back to Timothy and how we put it into practice. Man work, I think this is the main thing. But I've heard this guy speaking of this concept of the Sabbath for God, and then for God, Sabbath, yes, in the story of creation chronologically, we see at the last part, God created everything and then he rested. But that is the beginning of the new cycle. So long story short, obviously we can...
You work from rest.
Yeah, you work from rest. And you've said this so many times, but unfortunately we listen to people from the outside.
Yeah, but I don't do it either.
Yeah, so he's like, we start from rest. So Jewish people, for example, when they go to bed...
That's the start of the day.
The start of the day.
Yeah.
So I started doing that. I was like, no, you know what? I do not admit being tired during the day anymore because I start from rest. So rest is, I'm giving this to God.
It's a mindset.
It changes
a big
everything.
shift. I agree. I've done that for a while. There's the whole good night, when I get to bed.
Yeah.
Good night, hello.
Yeah.
You know,
It's not.
I've done my day.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start my new day now.
Yeah.
It's a different rhythm.
Yeah.
So when I wake up, I'm halfway through my day.
Exactly. and that has helped me not to feel guilty.
Yeah.
With the hours, you know, because I think, and this is very dangerous to say this, especially in a public platform, but I think that in ministry, you will do well if you understand that serving doesn't necessarily tie up to working.
No.
You might be serving people just by being at the hospital bed with them. And if you count them as hours of work, that is superficial.
Yeah.
It's nasty.
Yeah.
You'll be grudging.
You can't, my role is dictated to by a clock, but people aren't on the clock.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't charge people by the hour. I'm happy to sit in a hospital for a few hours and not worry about, I haven't spent enough time with doing this, doing that. No, this is me serving right now. And I've made provision and window for that because that is service. And I'm not thinking about the clock in that context, because sometimes in grief, you just have to sit
or hours,
be
days.
with someone. Be with someone.
Yeah.
And that's not a waste of time. It's actually serving them. So you're right. Yeah.
Even Nalini, sometimes she asks me, what have you done today that was productive? And I started shifting that to, well, I slept well. You know, and that's a shock, man. You tell that people think you're lazy, and you know, it's
People don't think you're lazy.
Learning people what?
I don't listen to people who think I'm lazy.
Yeah, it's agree.
I had to change that from my own vocabulary, you know, because I have a day off. I'm, man, what are you doing, Marsh? You're lazy. Actually, no. I'm looking after myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm having a rest. I need to rest. So
you've always said that, you know, the role of a pastor, willing and able.
Yeah.
So if you're sick, you're not able.
No.
You might be willing, but you're not able. So you take care of yourself, put that into your routine. And I think that most people don't realize until they get into ministry, they don't realize that the hours are much more than what you can count on a clock.
And some of them seem fruitless.
Yes. Amen.
You can't quantify people.
Prayer.
Yeah.
How do you quantify prayer?
But you can't. Sometimes you're seemingly sowing into fruitlessness. Why am I spending time doing this? Because I'm not going to see any fruit for years. So it's hard, even though you've time is seed. So you've only got limited seed when it comes to time. So you have to sow wisely, but realize 25% of it, it's just going to be just going to feed the birds.
Yeah.
Only maybe 25% will be fruitful. So, you know, some of it will fall onto seed that's just ground that's going to be distracted. So there's, you know, you've got to see your time as seed.
So I've got 2 questions that we can do in this session.
Yeah.
2 questions. One is, you spoke about a professional supervision. You said professional supervision. Yeah. First question about that. That's a two-folded question in one. First is, do they have to be Christian? Good faith, proven, tested. And second, how is that? How does that actually help you to process everything? Like, do they have a methodology? Because I think this will be good to pastors. They think it's a taboo. Like, I can't talk to anyone. You know, I have to have all the answers.
So firstly, they do need to be, I think, have a Christian worldview. They need to come from a premise of creation, premise of, you know, God, and the reality of Christ and the guidance of the Holy Spirit. I do believe that. Otherwise, you're getting input from the world. So I fully believe that. They need to be qualified. They high-level counselling, or they need to be qualified in a role of supervision. So all counsellors, they have to have a supervisor where they can debrief some of the trauma that they've heard or sat in, because it taints you, it taints your heart. So the issues that pastors face can be traumatic and challenging, and you can be fogged up in your brain, and it can taint your heart, so it affects your emotions. You don't feel anymore. Oh yeah, another funeral. Oh, who cares? Oh, that's a dangerous place to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is, or you're overwhelmed with
anything stirs you up.
Yeah. So there is the extremes that you're trying to stay away from. Willing and able, maybe they're the 2 extremes.
Yeah.
The 2 extremes. You're able to, but you're not willing because emotionally you're too depleted.
Yeah.
You're willing, but you're not able because you're sick. So that's what supervision's for. So you definitely need to be a trusted person.
Are they in the same? I'm not trying to figure out who they are. I'm just trying to feed information to people who are going to do that, because I've heard, you know, everybody should do therapy once every couple of months. I'm not sure. I haven't done it. I would like to try it, but I'm not even sure if I need it. It's like I think I'm, And that might sound naive or arrogant, but I think so far I've managed pretty well my thoughts. I think, but you know,
But
I
it's
hear
not
people
just your
saying it, and
thoughts;
I want
it's
to consider.
it's your emotions.
Yeah,
So your soul is your mind. Oh, I'm good with my thoughts, but how healthy is your will and your emotions?
Yeah.
So your willpower, your emotional well-being, because things affect you. Stress, pressure, people you're dealing with. So it's an objective viewpoint where they're not attached to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just throwing, yeah, but how did you respond to that? Why did you respond like that? And how can they carry the load? How can you lift the burden that you've been carrying? Sorry.
Should you say would you say that it's an unbiased,
Yeah, totally.
analytical?
Yeah, but they care for you. They don't care about anyone else. They're there for you to share openly, without judgment, without.
Very hard to believe that they will be able to process all of that and then keep going with their lives and see me next week. I'm like,
But it's got to be the right person.
Yes, weird. Look, I really want to try it. This has been in the back
They
of my
might
mind
not
for
see you
years.
next week. They might not be in your faith community.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Like, are they part of your faith community or not?
It's up to you if you trust them enough and who they are. There has to be a good level of qualifications and
You
training.
probably have tried a few, because how do you figure out?
Look, I have numerous times, and it's something that's important, because I don't want to become heartless and emotionless and callous and careless and reckless and restless. So I don't want to become those things. So I need to share, open up, cry,
Yeah.
Not that I did on Monday, but I was irritated about some things. So I just processed that.
Oh, that's why you deep today, because you just did it on Monday.
Yeah. Things, you dwell on things too much.
Yeah.
Why are you dwelling on them? Because you can't process them. Why can't you process them? Because there's issues.
Mm-hmm.
So really helpful. It'd probably be worth doing a session with
Yeah.
a supervisor, someone who is the supervisor, so they can share better than what I've done in relation to. I do it for my own well-being.
So
My wife doesn't want to hear the stuff.
Would you say that the elders in Ephesus were the supervisors, or Paul was the supervisor?
Paul has been the supervisor for Timothy, of course.
Okay.
So I'm sure.
So is that how they, would exchange letters? Oh, you answer this, answer that. Is that?
Well, it happened in Corinth, right?
Yeah, past version of what we have today.
Yeah, and also Timothy would have witnessed Paul. So
Dealing with things.
yeah, I mean the supervisor I see, I've known them for 25 years. So we've got a lot of trust, a lot of friendship there. So it's a very safe place for me. So I've got I'm very blessed in that. But before they were here, I went to a clinical psychologist, semi-regularly while I was here in Gold Coast, and just unpackage stuff. It's just venting, and them analysing why, asking why and the emotions attached to it, because you want to stay healthy.
Mind, healthy mind. Yeah. Second question I had was about the core of 1 Timothy chapter 3, godliness. We spoke about exemplified godliness.
Yep. So says this 14 to 16. These things I write to you, though I hope to come to you shortly. But if I am delayed, I write so that you may know how you ought to conduct yourself in the house of God. And so you've got those two things coming to this point.
Yeah.
Which is the church of the living God, the pillar and ground of the truth. Pillar, interesting word for the Ephesus. And without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness.
Great is the mystery of godliness. So that's where I was.
Without controversy.
I wanted to go there.
Without controversy. Great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifested in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen by angels, preached among the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up in glory. So these two extremes won't get you to godliness. Prayer will. Getting the men and the women sorted out, looking after the widows will. The sorting out your wealth situations, appointment of godly deacons and bishops, examples, role models, and really good leadership will get you focused on, without controversy. Great is the mystery of godliness, which is God manifested in flesh.
Yeah. So I wanted to go into the mystery, and based on what you just read, and especially your emphasis, without controversy.
Yeah.
I have been, a few new people on the Gold Coast came, and some of them are inevitably Brazilians because this seems to be the preferred destination. And somehow they find me, and then we've sat down and they said, they come from a different background, specifically culturally inside the church. And they said, I'm struggling because I don't find much teaching and I want more. And obviously they used to go to a church where they go for themselves. They think the church is a school. They want to learn. They want to get out of there, all of that. And that's not what we do here. And I think that, if we can build a church, and we have so far, if we can build a church where people are edified, there's good examples of elders, and people are loving one another, people are growing slowly at their own pace, finding their gifts, areas of service. This is the core of godliness to church, not to the individual.
Godliness
to the church.
is words and action lining up in accordance to your belief in Jesus Christ.
So our actions as a church, as a community,
a person.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying like our actions as a community.
Yeah.
What we do corporately, to me, so far, exemplifies better what Paul intends to display as a church than a teaching podium.
Oh, yeah, no. Because what's the point of teaching if nothing's changing?
Back to chapter 1.
It's got to be application. Godliness is applicable in our everyday life. In fact, we could say the same thing every Sunday and people should be happy about that.
Yeah.
And because what does it look like? How does it apply to my everyday life? Our behavior, our actions, our words should line up with Christ. That's the true essence of godliness, is living like Christ in word and deed. To please God. We're devoted to God to please Him. So, stop. See this. People say, "Oh, yeah, but you're not a teacher. You don't understand." No, I want to see people living, like Jesus. I need more teaching. No, love your neighbor now, better.
That'll teach you enough.
Love your wife, better. You don't need more teaching on the power of the tabernacle, of the,
what does they do
eschatology?
to you?
Nothing. You don't need more teaching.
Yeah.
You just need to apply what you already know, loving your kids more.
And there's not much you can do. You can't build 27 points on how to love your neighbor. You go there, show up, and love your neighbor.
Yeah. So I struggle with and that's what I find. There's not enough teaching. We don't need more teaching. You can click on YouTube for endless hours of teaching.
Yeah.
It's application. My job as a pastor is for you to apply the word of God.
And how intriguing is this? There is a good portion of people who will say at the first glance, they're not part of the community, they haven't understood it, they haven't walked with us for a year. But if we say, out of 100, if 40 people say, I've come 5 times, I need more teaching, and then you tell them, look, we've got what we call a Bible college. That's teaching. You won't find much of the church exemplified there. That's teaching.
It's teaching.
They don't come.
No.
So they don't really want teaching.
No.
They just want to be in the vain discussions.
Yeah. But But they say they want more teaching, but they actually don't want to enter discussion. They just want to sit there and have someone expound the word for them.
Distill it for them. Yes.
Without interaction or engagement.
Yeah.
They just want to, how much does this guy know? Oh, it's not deep enough. I'll find somewhere else. No, you just don't want to apply enough. Yeah, that's what and this is the mystery of godliness, is God became flesh. God wants to flow through our flesh and display the character of Christ.
Very, very, very hard to, one of my challenges is, how do we build the church that Jesus intended? And we Greek mindset people, we sit in a classroom and we want the answer. Here's the problem. Give me the answer. The Hebrew people will go like, oh, you found the problem. I'll tell you a story. Yeah. And if you see the same things I see, you get on the story with me and we might find another problem and then another problem. But as we go through these problems, we change the way we live, we adapt, and we get closer to what we call maturity. We get closer to Jesus. And teaching in the Hebrew way is super hard. I mean, not that I am any specialist on teaching in the Hebrew way, but when I sit down with my students on Wednesday and I ask them, okay, what do you guys think about this? Crickets. Crick. And then I have to keep like, oh, how about this? How about that? Because we are conditioned to wait for the answer. Yeah. And it's hard to build a church that Jesus intended, if I am right in believing this way.
Well, also, people want more knowledge, so their status is better.
Yeah.
So, whereas I'm like, no, we need to apply. What does it look like? People want to look at your life, not hear what you say. Look at your life and say, that's what it looks like. And it's longer than you think. It takes a lot longer.
Takes years.
It takes years. People want a quick fix. Yeah. What does Christianity look like? Well, let's ask the 70-year-old who's got kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's old. No, he's lived a life of faithfulness, of loving his wife, of loving his kids, and they're in relationship with him. That's what it looks like.
There is one thing in my life that I think I've managed to do that's not even basketball. When we were pastoring the church in Brazil, I told Nalini, we're never going to split any bills. When we go, we'll be the first ones to pay, and we'll teach people by the example. And boy, oh boy, did we lose some money there, because every single time for years, there was, okay, we go to the restaurant, $300. Oh, how do I do this? And you were always on my case, learn how to receive. And I was proud. No, I'm not going to receive. But then slowly, some people got the wind of it. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I see what you're doing. You're trying to teach generosity, not dividing, but generosity. Yeah, so I'll pay the next. And then they will go. And then at the end of our journey, every time we went to a restaurant, it kind of became known in our city. It's a very small city. It became known in our city that when the people from our church came to the restaurant, it would always be a confusion at the end. Because people would line up and say, no, I want to pay everything. And then someone at the back's like, don't let him pay everything because I want my blessing too. And they will be fighting. So there was no equal split. Yeah. Fast forwarded to our context right now in the present. I've done a few things in our house, a few barbecues, and never asked anyone for anything. And Nalini, my wife, said the other day, isn't it amazing that people take a while to understand this?
Wow. Took 11 years, brother. People still bludge, turn up for free.
Yeah.
Don't sew in.
Don't bring anything.
They take everything.
Yeah.
And you just have to keep believing that generosity begets generosity.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cast your bread on the water.
That's it.
After many days, it will come back to you.
Many years, we should say.
Be generous. Throw everything you have. Bless those out of the abundance of what you have.
Yeah.
It'll come around.
Yeah.
It might just take a while
does.
For some people.
It always does. I told her the other day, it's like, I think you're stressed about the wrong reason. You remember a few months ago that we got this much given? And she's like, it's true. And I said, you work out the numbers and you will see that we have received more.
It doesn't add up.
Given.
So
we outgive God.
Yeah. People say, at what point do banquets cost something for the participant?
Never.
I'm like, why are we even having this discussion? Has God provided everything we need right now?
Yeah.
So why won't he provide everything we need in the future? as soon as we start managing it, that's when it'll start deteriorating.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Awesome.
I think that's good.
Bro, that was 1 Timothy and a little bit more.
Yeah. 1 Timothy, I mean, it's so good.
Yeah.
That
So
might
this is
give
a
them
banquet. This is a banquet that we run on our banquet
Yeah.
season. That, well, I would encourage
Yeah.
everyone who's running a small church.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the numbers.
Oh,
if you
it's
want to get
good.
into the banquets, do that.
Yeah, but 1 Timothy, it's really good for literal church structure.
We haven't even spoken about succession. We were supposed to do that.
Yeah, it hasn't even. It's just so good. Just talks about the priorities of a godly faith community.
And I've said it before. I've said it to you that I think you're doing really well starting your succession journey. And I'm not naming any names, but early, because you're turning 50. You're fully healthy. You still got a lot of gas in the tank, but you're like, nah, this thing needs to work without me. So I think, congratulations to you. Praise the Lord. I think you're doing really well. And I think that could be another discussion another day. Succession.
Well, I've just noticed that people leave it too late.
Yeah.
So
They're bitter.
I'd rather be at the head of the curve than behind it.
Yeah.
So people might think it's premature, but I'm like, oh well, I'm still here.
Yeah.
So we'll just release more and more, and raise more and more leaders. I think it's
Instead of better late than never, we'll go the sooner the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sooner the better. And then there's enjoyment. Then there's you're there to support
you release to
them
do more.
Oh mate,
That's
that's
it.
fantastic.
That's what we want to do more.
So,
Get busy
yeah.
for the Lord.
Yeah, and I don't think, I struggle with the whole. Never. It probably happens a lot. I just haven't seen it much. It's not about one person. It's not about one family. Like I want to see that.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
Being about Marshall and Michelle. I don't.
Yeah, I feel your pain.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I feel your pain.
It's
And
too small.
I haven't seen it done very successfully yet.
And I'm not
Again.
a nepotist guy.
Yeah.
So if my kids wanted to pastor a church, they can go plant their own. And they know that. I've told them that.
Yeah.
Don't try and get a job in my church. you start your own.
Yeah.
So one of them's done internship at the moment.
You have to be called to this thing because it's very different.
Oh, they're not my succession plan.
Yeah.
My kids are not my succession plan.
Which is weird to think
I
about.
never want to ask my kids for anything or make them feel they have to cover me for anything. It's not.
Yeah.
That's not a father. I'm there for them. I give my life for them.
Yeah.
They don't have to give their life for me.
Again, another Paul example.
Yeah.
Parents are supposed to save up for the children, not the other way
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
I don't want to. Yeah. They don't have to give me anything. I'm here to give life,
Come on.
support, provision. I want
Praise
them
the Lord.
blessed. No, guys, don't turn around and look at me. You go and do likewise. You have your kids and look after their grandkids. And
What you have seen and heard and learned from me, you go and do it.
Yeah, I think Paul is a great example.
Yeah.
I think he's an amazing example of a godly leader. Because it wasn't about him either. He was constantly trying to, push others. No, I was saying Timothy, I can't make it, but he's a good man. He's great. Let him do it.
Yeah.
So, here, Timothy, this is how you do it. I'll even give you the instruction on how to do it.
Yeah.
But Timothy's the man.
And you make sure you tell them that I told you that. Yeah,
Awesome.
bro. Awesome. Thanks for doing that.
All
That's
good.
amazing. I think it's going to be 2 incredible chapters in our journey, and we'll come back next week for more on succession. Should we talk about succession?
I think
want to talk about next week?
I don't know. I think
Calendar. Spoken about planning. But always good to come back to it.
Yeah, actually, breaking down a week for a pastor's good.
Okay, great. Calendar.
Because a week's pretty ordinary.
Yeah.
It's pretty. Maybe the embracing the ordinary.
Go play basketball with the kids.
Yeah, life is ordinary, bro.
Yeah.
As a pastor, Very little highs. If Sunday's your high, then
trouble.
you're in trouble on Monday. No, Sunday's ordinary.
Yeah.
Sunday's ordinary. Yeah, that's what I
Brilliant.
think. All right,
Let's do
bless
it.
you.